Hi guys, it's Tamara here again. Most of you know me as the founder of drawfence.com and .ca. I've also been a estimator and project manager, mostly for commercial fence projects, but also for a lot of other trades and things like that over the years, for about 25 years. And I've also been very heavily involved in contract management and stuff like that. In fact, I've written a book about it. So the reason behind this video is I'm trying to make a series of videos about stuff that, especially companies that are getting into commercial and industrial fence projects and unrelated projects or even different subtrades and stuff like that, might not know about that could impact their pricing and their profits and stuff like that. Today, I want to talk to you about geotechnical reports. So I went onto the internet and I found one that was used for a project in the past, just so I have an example of what it might look like. These do sometimes look different. Sometimes they're just, a bunch of tables with sort of cores that they've taken and the different layers of different kinds of soil and geology and stuff like that. Um, but they usually encompass a lot of things like soil types and water table and frost lines and stuff like that. So it's all things that are very relevant to fences and to especially fences that are installed in concrete. But the thing is, if you go to a fence site and you do a site inspection and you don't know what's under the ground, and later on it turns out that there's hard rock or something like that, that you have to either do coring or you have to alter your footings, or maybe there's a very high water table, so you have to bring in a pump to pump out your holes so you can pour your concrete and so on. If you didn't know that when you went to the job site and when you bid the project and when you got the project, then you could probably get a change order for that and cover those costs. However, if you have bid the job based on a bid document, and that bid document included a geotechnical investigation, there's a good chance that you are not going to be able to get that money back from your customer. So I'm going to show you what a geotechnical investigation looks like, and then what you can do to make sure that you don't get um, into a situation where you're losing money because of it. So a geotechnical investigation, if it is included in a bid document, you always want to have a look at that. You always want to do as part of your sort of bid analysis before you start doing your estimating and stuff like that, because it will tell you a lot about what the subsurface conditions are. And if the subsurface conditions are not great, then you will know that you need to either make allowances for those pumps or for coring, or if there's a very high water table, maybe suggest to the customer that they do screw piles or pounded post or something like that instead. So, like I said, this is an actual geotechnical report that I got off the internet, and here's the table of contents. So basically, they'll tell you where it is and what they did and what they were looking for and all that sort of thing. And then there's also a bunch of tables and things like that. So what they do is, before the project goes out on tender for various things, they will have a company that specializes in this kind of geotechnical investigation go out to the site and take a bunch of cores or borehole drilling. Basically, they take a tube of soil out of the ground. So they'll go to the site and they'll identify various different areas, usually at random, but maybe there's something that they're concerned about. They will do a core there just to make sure what's going on under the ground. And then they'll put it all together in this kind of report. And this will tell you, like here, they tell you where the locations are and all those kinds of things. They will tell you what kind of topsoil there is. They will tell you the overall general geology of the area. So some places might be known for things like underground, like shale or something like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that particular site will have those problems or that it'll have those problems in all the places. Then they'll also tell you about the topsoil and whether there's clay and so on. And groundwater, they will tell you what the water table is for those particular boreholes they took, which again is very important in the fence world, especially if you're doing a concrete um, footing fence. So all of these things, and you really do have to read these reports kind of as part of your analysis of the scope and specification for every project. But it will tell you pretty much everything you need to know. So here they even talk about excavation and temporary shoring. So if it's very sandy soil, you might need to use something like a sonotube to make sure that the foundation or the holes for your footings don't collapse in on themselves. So all of these things are adding cost to the project, and that's why we need to look at these things when they are in a bid document to make sure that we're taking all of them into account when we're doing our estimating and our planning and all those kinds of things. Um, here we go. Dewatering. So this is another term for pumping the water out of those holes. So again, they will tell you where the water level is and whether it's something you need to worry about and so on. Um, and then I'm going to get to, and then in this report, they've even gone so far as to say, because they obviously know what the specification and scope of work for this project is, so they can refer back to those things in their geotechnical report and specifically address those. That's not always the case in a bid for a fence. Sometimes they just have a generic geotechnical investigation that will just tell you what you can expect to see on that site. But that's still very helpful. And then this is what really is quite helpful as well, because every single borehole that they've drilled on a particular site, they will tell you and show you where it is. So you can say, okay, my fence line is along here, and those holes have hard rock at 2 feet below ground level or whatever, so you know what you're going to be in for when you get to there. And this is what the tables look like that you very often see in bid documents, and it'll have a graphic representation of what is expected underground on that particular site. So you can see this one is at 600 millimeters, they've got clay, and then down to 1.2 meters, they've got sand. Very often, these kinds of reports can be done in metric, so you might have to do a bit of conversions, but in the US, you might see more of it in feet and inches and those kinds of things. And then this is what you'll see for each of those sites. So again, here it shows that it's at nearly 800 millimeters of silty sand, and then gravel, and then so on and so on and so on. So you can then plot these out according to the site plan that they've given you, and you can kind of figure out what each fence line's soil composition and so on is going to be. Um, and again, these reports are included so that basically your customer can cover their butt and they can say, because one of the ways that you can get extra money on a fence job is obviously if you have unknown adverse subterranean conditions, which is a long way of saying there's stuff underground that's not good and you didn't know about it. But if they've given you a geotechnical investigation in the bid document, you can't say you didn't know about it because they've given you that information in the bid document. And basically, then you're going to be hooped if you try and get any kind of extra change orders or anything like that for difficult digging conditions or anything like that. So I hope that was useful, and I hope that fence companies that are just getting started in the commercial and industrial world and haven't quite found their way around bid documents and things like that got something of value out of it. Always look for a geotechnical report in a bid document. If there is one, you definitely need to take a look at it, and you definitely need to take note of what those cores and stuff are telling you. If not, I always like to specify in my bid documents that the soil type is assumed to be whatever it might be, and that it's easy to excavate with whatever kind of excavation you're going to be doing, and that no allowance has been made for coring or dealing with excess water or shoring or whatever those kinds of things are. Exclude it in writing, because if you didn't exclude it in writing, there's always a chance that your customer could come back to you and say, oh, well, we didn't know that wasn't included. So if it's not in writing, it didn't happen, make sure you include those kinds of clauses in every bid and every quote in writing so that you can cover your butt and not lose money. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll be doing more of these videos about different kinds of clauses and contract issues and estimating and bidding and all those kinds of things. Hopefully it'll help someone to um, to save a little bit of money on their next project. Thanks for listening. Bye.